Welcome to the NFL Divisional Weekend Betting Pros. I am Andrew Erickson, aka the Props Prophet, and today I'm coming at you my favorite player props for Divisional Weekend of the NFL playoffs. But before we look to build that NFL bankroll, if you want a chance to win a premium one-year subscription to Betting Pros, your place to start betting smarter and not harder, all you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below this video, and that is it. I'm announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Now, let's get to my 12 player prop bets for Divisional Weekend. Break out those calculators. It's time to get divisional. We're going to start things off in chronological order of the matchups. Texans and Ravens. First game kicking off on Saturday, 4:30 Eastern. Devin Singletary over 54.5 rushing yards. Minus 120 over on ESPN Bet. So Singletary, once again, was the number one running back for the Texans in the wildcard round. Rushed 13 times for 66 yards. Had a touchdown. Actually, had another run called back due to a holding penalty. 72% snap share. Dameon Pierce played 13% of the snaps. Singletary is clearly the RB1 in this backfield, and I think they're going to continue to ride him on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. I think he's going to go over 54.5 rushing yards. He's gone over in 5 of his last 6 games. And look, the Ravens' run defense can be run on. They are not a stonewall run defense. Since week 6, they've allowed nearly 100 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs at the second highest yards per carry in the NFL at 4.8. 6 of the last 7 running backs they have faced have gone over 55 rushing yards. So, Devin Singletary, you're afraid of game script a little bit if things get out of hand, but I think the Texans offense can keep things close enough to not only cover the plus 9.5, but also get Devin Singletary to the promised land over 54.5 rushing yards. Now, when I did my prize picks video earlier this week, it was all more thans. It was all overs. So I had to sprinkle in some unders here. It's hard to find unders. Obviously, there's less games that are being played, and the teams are all good. So she's expecting guys to deliver. So I'm basically trying to find the worst players on the best teams remaining, and nobody profiles like that, like Diontae Schultz, under 36.5 receiving yards, minus 114 over on FanDuel Sportsbook. So he played the most tight end snaps in the wildcard round. He actually scored on his lone catch for 37 yards. Look, he also had a dropped target on one of his other targets. Brevin Jordan had a monster touchdown catch, 76 yards to the house. He basically just broke a bunch of tackles. But he also played 50% of the snaps. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards the under here on Schultz receiving yards prop this week. He's just not involved consistently enough in the offense despite the injuries to guys like Tank Dell and Noah Brown. Matchup is tough versus Baltimore. You know, Schultz has gone under his receiving yards prop in 3 straight games and under 5 of his last 7 games with Brevin Jordan playing. So the splits do not favor Schultz to get a lot of looks when Brevin Jordan plays. So I'm going to be looking to the under on Dalton Schultz, who's arguably probably one of the worst players playing this weekend with the Elite 8 remaining. Another under in this game, Gus Edwards, the Gus bus, under 51.5 rushing yards for the Baltimore Ravens, minus 115 over on BetMGM. I'm taking the under on Gus Edwards. Look, they're still kind of running a committee thing with Justice Hill. Melvin Gordon, I don't really expect to play that much after he fumbled away all of his opportunities the last time we saw the Ravens play. And maybe Dalvin Cook gets a little bit more involved. Don't forget, Dalvin Cook is on the Ravens now. Maybe he wins a championship in LeSean McCoy-esque fashion when he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years back. But the bigger point here is the Texans have been a stonewall run defense since week 8. Just 3 running backs have surpassed their rushing totals against the Houston Texans. So I'm taking the under on his rushing yardage prop. Again, since week 8, 3 running backs have surpassed their rushing totals against Houston's stonewall run defense. 8 of the last 10 running backs have finished under their projected rushing yard total. 3 of them have hit 50 rushing yards at 51.5, slamming the under on Gus Edwards. Next matchup here. George Kittle over 52.5 receiving yards between the 49ers and Green Bay Packers. Look, the Green Bay Packers bleed big gains to tight ends. Second highest yards per reception allowed, ranking 26th in DVOA against the position this season. And we saw this 49ers offense a couple times take on Joe Brady's defense in Green Bay twice back in 2021. Look, this is what we have to look at because of how good all the offensive players are on the 49ers. I think that this is something that Kyle Shanahan's going to take into consideration. George Kittle was a big threat in both of those games. He was very productive. He went over 52 yards in both those contests against the Packers when they last played. So I'm going to be looking at the over at George Kittle as receiving yards. Again, he's always someone that's going to rip off a big play. Maybe not get a lot of targets, but get enough volume because of his efficiency. He's gone over 52.5 receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 games, including 6 of the 49ers' 7 home games played this season. I actually really like Kittle's anytime touchdowns too. Plus 145 anytime touchdowns. Actually one of the highest EV bets per the Betting Pros anytime touchdown scorer tool, 35% cover probability. I absolutely love that. The Packers have faced the third most red zone targets to Titans this season, and we all saw Jake Ferguson not score one, not score two, but score 3 touchdowns, which he did call out on the prop bet article last week. Great week for the anytime touchdowns. Keep it rolling here into the divisional round. Other side of the football, Jordan Love. Look, just take the overs on Jordan Love. 247.5 passing yards, minus 115 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Look, I'm expecting another high-octane volume passing effort from Love. 49ers have allowed the third most completions to quarterbacks this season. 4 of their last 5 have gone over 22.5 passing completions. 8 of 11 have hit the over on their completions prop. So Jordan Love's going to be chucking the ball a ton. He's going to be completing a ton of passes. So he's going to go over 250 passing yards. Look, he's gone over 255 plus yards in 8 of his last 10 games played. That's an 80% hit rate. So I'm going to continue to ride Jordan Love into the sunset. And I also love pairing him with his number 1 wide receiver. The stone cold lock of the week, folks. Again, it's juicy, but that's why it's a lock. Jaden Reed over 3.5 receptions, minus 130 over on ESPN. I bet that's the best number I was able to find, but, always shop for the best lines. Look, Jaden Reed was not needed last week, went over 300 targets in the wildcard round, but it was a tough matchup. Cowboys have been really good against slot receivers, and again, they didn't really need a lot of volume because they were up so big in the first half, 27-0. Not expecting that type of blowout for the Green Bay Packers against the 49ers on the road. So I expect Reed to bounce back here in a big way as the Packers clear-cut number 1 wide receiver. The 49ers have allowed the 5th most catches to wide receivers this season. Reed is that quick read slot option for Jordan Love out of the slot. So I think he's going to look for his rookie frequently and pepper him with targets. Before last week in the wildcard round, Reed had gone for 4 or more receptions in 8 straight games. 8 straight games, folks. This is the stone cold lock of the week. Over 3.5 receptions for Jaden Reed. Here we go. Next matchup here, going to Sunday's games. I'm on Ross St. Brown. What else can we say? Over 89.5 receiving yards. Talked about this on one of the Fantasy Pros shows. Talked about this on the Prize Picks show. It's the lock, man. Unless he gets hurt, fingers crossed, Sun God is going to get it done. Minus 114 at FanDuel Sportsbook. I like the over in Jared Goff's passing yards. So you're just going to pair it up with the Sun God. I'm on Raw. He's gone for 95 or more receiving yards. 7 of his 8 games played at home this year. No fewer than 77 receiving yards at any home game this season. He's 90 plus receiving yards in 4 straight games. Amon Ra went for 124 yards last time these teams played earlier this season. Like, we trusted the Sun God last week, and he didn't let us down. Rinse and repeat. Prayers up for the Sun God. He's going to get it done once again here in the Dome, Ford Field, a.k.a. the Coors Field of the NFL. Now, switching gears to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side, Chris Godwin over 59.5 receiving yards. So we're going to keep this, God theme going. We got the Sun God. We got Godwin. And they're going to deliver for us. Even though Chris Godwin came up just short last week, it was just a weird game. Baker Mayfield, I felt like, left so much production. I mean, if you were going to tell me Baker Mayfield was going to throw for 330 yards and Godwin and Evans would both fall under their projection, I would have been like, you're crazy. So I'm going to buy the dip on Godwin. The Lions have allowed the most fantasy points to slot wide receivers since week 9. Last week, as I mentioned, Godwin came just under his receiving yardage, 45 yards on 5 targets. He did catch a touchdown, hit a 14% target share. When we look at this matchup, when these teams first played in week 6, Godwin led the team in receiving yards, 6 catches for 77 yards on 7 targets for a 19% target share. And Godwin has hit the over on his receiving projection in 5 of the last 6 games played. So I'm going to buy the dip on Chris Godwin, buy the dip on Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, all these Buccaneers. They're going to show up big in a shootout in Detroit. Let's go. Because we're going to get shootout environment. Going back to the Lions. Again, I like Amon-Ra, but I also like Jamison Williams. I like this prop last week, did not hit, but I'm going right back to it. Jamison Williams over 31.5 receiving yards, minus 114 at FanDuel Sportsbook, because it was a Josh Reynolds game. I overlooked the Josh Reynolds revenge game narrative against the Rams. He had 5 catches for 80 yards on 7 targets, 27% target share. I don't think that's going to sustain, so I would even consider taking the under on Reynolds and going over on Jamison Williams, because they basically kind of played the similar amount of snaps. He played only a little bit more than Jamison Williams. And Jamison Williams was coming off an injury, so maybe they were kind of easing him back in just a little bit. He still had 2 catches for 19 yards on 2 targets, and he only ran 3 fewer routes than both Reynolds and Amon-Ra. So I still think Williams, again, another week removed from the injury. I think he'll be back to full speed, and they're going to need him. They need that big play, deep threat with J-Mo on the field. His numbers suppressed from last week down to 31.5 receiving yards. And again, just looking back at this matchup before in week 6, that was Williams' second game back from suspension. He caught 2 passes for 53 yards and 1 touchdown in his second game back from suspension. So I think that considering he's a big play threat, I would stay away from his receptions props. Kid, y'all love the receptions. Everyone loves them. But he has 40 or more yards in 5 of his last 7 games played, which is why I like the over on his receiving yards. Don't want to go to the catches, as I avoid that word one last time. Last part of this game, Rashad White under 55.5 rushing yards. Basically, I saved all the unders on running backs until they came out because the books were afraid to put them out because they knew that it was a couple tough matchups for some of these running backs. So that's what I'm chasing here. Rashad White under 55.5 rushing yards, minus 115 at BetMGM. Lions defense is elite against the run. They've not allowed a running back to surpass 70 rushing yards against them all season. Fewest rushing yards allowed per game to running backs this season at 60.5. And Rashad White has gone under 55.5 rushing yards in 2 of his last 4 games, both of which came in tougher matchups. So White, I'm a believer in him in fantasy football since the beginning. It was tough in the beginning. I'm still not super convinced he's this elite runner that can create so much on his own. The Buccaneers' offensive line is not a good run blocking team. They're a good pass blocking team, which is why the passing game has been so good. So White, I think, is going to be more involved as a receiver in this game, not necessarily as an effective rusher. So I'm going to take the under on Rashad White in a game, again, that I think is going to be more passing from both sides. So we saw last week from Stafford and Jared Goff. I think it's going to be the exact same thing between Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff, just air yards, passing attempts, passing yardage all over the place in the dome. Last but not least, going to the last game here on the slate, Chiefs and Buffalo Bills. I really don't like this game a lot from a lot of player props standpoints. I only have 2, the last 2 that I have here. So let's make them right. Let's make them worth it here as we kick our feet back up and enjoy a game between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, who are the 2 featured players on my last player props. Josh Allen over 9.5 rushing attempts plus 105 on DraftKings Sportsbook. You can actually find this one over on FanDuel as well. You might be a better number. 8.5 rushing attempts if that number is still live. Again, shop the best lines, but also shop for the best payouts as well. Allen's been running like a wild man as a mobile quarterback. Gone over 10 or more carries in 3 of his last 6 games. And at plus money, I like taking a little bit more on the attempt side, 9.5, 8.5 on FanDuel, like I mentioned before. Look, his career rushing attempts per game versus the Chiefs is 10.3. That's the highest against any opponent he has played more than once in his NFL career. Basically, when he sees that arrowhead on that sign, he sees Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the field, he knows it's game time. He wears the Superman shirt, and he is locked and loaded and ready to go. So I think Josh Allen is going to put on the Superman cape and be a running machine in this matchup. And it really calls for it because the Chiefs, their defense, have faced the most rushing attempts and red zone touches to quarterbacks this season. So Josh Allen's going to run a lot. The defense suggests he's going to run a lot. It's the playoffs, and we're going to see Josh Allen run a lot. And the only other thing as well that who's going to run a lot here is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, anytime touchdown, plus 600, 6-1 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, Mahomes has still not scored a touchdown yet this season. It's his first season he's failed to score a touchdown at all. And it's weird because if you look at his rushing numbers, they're all career highs across the board in terms of attempts, in terms of yards per carry. It's all season highs or career highs. But he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So again, I'm chasing regression here. We did this last week with Dalton Kincaid, came through with flying colors. So we're going to do it again this week. Again, considering the supporting cast around the Chiefs quarterback, we know Travis Kelce hasn't played his A game. Rashee Rice is obviously breaking out all over the place. But I expect Mahomes, like he does in every single postseason, to scramble more than he does in the regular season. He calls his number more often in the postseason because he knows that it's win or go home. So he's willing to take more risks. We saw him in the Miami Dolphins game. Almost scored a touchdown, and he basically broke his helmet in the process. So we're seeing a more aggressive Mahomes is going to call his number. Week 16, he had a season high in 10 carries, 53 rushing yards. Again, last week, talked about that. He had a red zone rushing attempt. He came close to scoring. I thought he was going to score. So what we'll see, he's going to be aggressive around the goal line. His last rushing touchdown in the playoffs came against the Buffalo Bills. And no player has more combined red zone attempts, 14, than Mahomes does without a touchdown scored yet this season, per the Fantasy Pros first touchdown score report. The Chiefs also could strike first, given how often they've scored first this season, at the third highest rate in the NFL. Again, tight point spread. So if you really want to sprinkle on some more money, you can get Patrick Mahomes' first touchdown at like plus 2,800 for some crazy odds. I really have some fun on Sunday night. The Bills have allowed 2 first touchdown rushing scores to opposing quarterbacks this season. That's going to do it, folks. That's going to tie a bow on my favorite props for NFL Divisional weekend. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, share with all your friends. And again, go check out follow me, Andrew Erickson, over on the Betting Pros app. You can find all my bets there. You can fade them, you can tail them, you can do whatever you think is right. And again, if you disagree with me or you want to find other high-end plays for the upcoming slate of NFL games, or MLB, or NHL, or NBA, or whatever sport you're into, the prop bet cheat sheet over on bettingpros.com is your one-stop shop for all the player props that you need for whatever sport you want to play. NFL is obviously my favorite sport, so that's where I'm looking for. It also has prize picks as well. Again, before you go, be sure to also check out the prize picks video I released every single week. There's a new one up over on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel account. That basically where I discuss guys like McCaffrey, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Mike Evans, some more player props that I like on the prize pick side of things. So again, thank you guys for watching. But again, before you go, if you want a chance to win a premium one-year subscription to Betting Pros, your place to start betting smarter and not harder, all you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below this video, and that is it. We're announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Thanks for watching, and let's get divisional this weekend. Here we go.